Welcome to This Day in His Story, created by American Heritage Worldwide, a reminder that every day holds something new to learn. Did you know that the joy you find in Easter helps you to understand the symbols and blessings of new life and rebirth in the resurrection of the Savior? Discover that as you learn of Him, feel His love, and follow His example, you will find the peace, hope, and joy that comes from being His disciple.
Um, Imagine handing a child a brightly colored, like a neon pink plastic Easter egg.
Oh, yeah, the classic spring staple.
Right. And they eagerly crack it open, entirely expecting a marshmallow chick or maybe a handful of jelly beans.
Naturally.
But instead, they find a small, jagged rock and like this really sobering message about a literal, historical, political execution.
Wow. Yeah. Talk about a mood shift.
Exactly. It sounds like a surefire recipe for a ruined holiday, right?
Yeah.
But today, we are unpacking a source that argues this exact juxtaposition is, well, it's the secret to actually saving the holiday.
It really is.
So, welcome to today's deep dive. We're looking at a fascinating, very hands-on activity designed to bridge that massive gap between the fun, secular appeal of springtime celebrations for you and your family and the deeply sacred, factual origins of Easter.
Yeah, and it's a tension you see in almost every household that observes the holiday,
Absolutely.
You have these universal natural symbols of rebirth, the budding trees after a long winter, the new flowers, the sudden appearance of baby animals.
The bunnies and chicks.
Right, exactly. And those are beautiful. They're comforting symbols. But there is a very real danger of those secular symbols just um, completely overriding the profound historical reality of the atonement and the literal resurrection of Jesus Christ.
Yeah, they just take over.
They do. And what's great is that the source material we're examining today, it doesn't just complain about that tension. It offers a really brilliant pedagogical tool to resolve it.
And what's so fascinating is how it resolves it.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't tell you to throw away the plastic eggs or, like, ban the springtime fun.
No, not at all.
It leans into it. It's like, okay, think of it this way. Celebrating Easter just for the candy is a bit like throwing a massive birthday party, but completely forgetting who the guest of honor is.
Oh, that's a perfect analogy, yeah.
Right. Or it's like trying to watch a profound documentary on a TV that's also playing a brightly colored, really loud cartoon, like picture-in-picture.
And human brains, especially kids' brains, they naturally gravitate toward the flashy colors.
Of course they do. So instead of trying to turn off the cartoon, this activity basically turns the cartoon itself into the documentary.
I love that.
It takes the ubiquitous, cheap plastic Easter egg and repurposes it. It turns it into a chronological, tactile roadmap of Jesus's final days.
Yeah, and the mechanism here is what educators call tactile learning. And I gotta say, it is incredibly effective.
Break that down for us a bit.
Sure. So the activity calls for 12 plastic eggs numbered 1 through 12. Inside each one, you place a specific scriptural message, and this is crucial. You can also include a small physical object that corresponds to that factual event.
Okay.
So you hide them, you let the family hunt for them, just like a normal spring game.
The kids still get the hunt.
Exactly. They still
Yeah.
get the fun. But then you sit down and you open them in order. So you are taking these monumental historical facts and anchoring them to a physical object in a person's hand today.
Which is so smart. And since you, the listener, are likely already familiar with the historical beats of the Easter story, we aren't going to just rehash the biblical timeline step by step.
Right. You know the basics.
Yeah, you know about Gethsemane, you know about Pilate. What we really need to unpack is why this source selects specific moments to place inside these plastic eggs and how that specific sequencing completely alters a family's understanding of the event.
It really does shift the perspective.
So let's get into it. The source clusters the first few eggs entirely around the politics and the emotional weight of betrayal.
It plunges you straight into the cognitive dissonance.
It really does.
Because the first egg takes us to the Garden of Gethsemane, where Jesus felt all pains and sorrows, completely submitting to the Father's will.
Right.
But it's the second and third eggs that really jolt the participant out of that pastel holiday mindset.
Okay, set the scene for us.
You open a plastic shell, and you're confronted with Judas Iscariot negotiating a literal transaction for a human life. 30 pieces of silver.
Hold on, I have to challenge this right out of the gate because I can hear parents thinking this right now.
Okay, go for it.
We're talking about taking a springtime family gathering, which usually involves very young children, and injecting political corruption, betrayal, and eventually, physical torture into the afternoon.
It's heavy.
It's incredibly heavy.
Yeah.
How does the source justify bringing that level of trauma into a celebration without just, completely traumatizing the kids or ruining the mood of the day?
That's a totally valid concern. But the psychological concept at play here is it's about preventing the sanitization of history.
The sanitization of history.
Right. When we constantly shield participants from the friction and the betrayal, the eventual resolution loses its power.
Oh, interesting.
By placing the 30 pieces of silver or, a token representing the binding of Jesus by the chief priests into a brightly colored egg, you create cognitive friction.
Because the brain is expecting sugar.
Exactly. It expects sugar, and instead it receives the weight of human failing. This physical, tactile discovery anchors the reality that these weren't just characters in a fairy tale.
Right. They were real people.
Real political Ingordies making real fatal decisions.
So the contrast is the point. The dissonance is what makes the memory stick.
Precisely.
That makes me think about Pilate, actually, who the source includes right after the betrayal. The text specifically highlights that Pilate, the governor, he possessed the political power to stop the execution.
He did.
And he explicitly knew Jesus hadn't done anything wrong. He recognized the innocence.
And yet he yields to the crowd. He literally washes his hands, declaring himself innocent of the blood of a just person.
Which is egg number 4.
Right. So if you're holding a physical token from that egg, maybe a small piece of soap or just the scriptural text itself, you're forced to grapple with the mundane reality of political cowardice.
Wow. Yeah, it puts it right in your hands.
The source doesn't let you bypass the uncomfortable human elements of the narrative. It forces the participant to acknowledge that the foundational event of Christianity was facilitated by everyday human flaws. Greed for silver and fear of a crowd.
That immediately strips away that glossy, pastel-colored veneer we usually slap onto spring holidays.
It really does.
And the activity, it just doesn't let up. Once the political betrayal is established, the source moves the family directly into the visceral physical toll of the crucifixion.
Yes, eggs 5 and 6.
We're talking about the red robe, the crown of thorns, the mockery where they shout, "Hail, King of the Jews."
And that transition from political maneuvering to physical torment is crucial for the tactile learning experience.
How so?
Well, the source details how, after the mockery, his own clothes are put back on him to lead him to the crucifixion. The psychological torment is laid out so plainly.
Yeah.
When a family reads this together, holding that numbered egg, they're bridging a 2,000-year gap. They are holding the reality that a physical body actually endured this sequence of events.
And there is one specific detail in this section of the activity, I think it's egg 7, that absolutely blew my mind when I read the source.
Oh, I think I know what you're going to say.
It's when we get to the crucifixion itself, and the text notes that the soldiers parted his garments, casting lot.
They were gambling.
Exactly. They were literally playing a game at the foot of the cross to decide who got to keep a dying man's clothes.
It's a striking image.
Think about the multi-layered brilliance of including that specific detail in this Easter activity.
Right, because of what the family is doing.
Yes. You have a family sitting in their living room, having just finished playing a game, an Easter egg hunt. They open their prize, and the text inside forces them to confront ancient soldiers playing a callous game during the most agonizing moment in human history.
The juxtaposition is staggering.
It's incredible.
It is incredibly profound. It takes the participants' current safe reality, playing a game in the spring, and mirrors it against the darkest manifestation of human apathy. It grounds the sacred narrative in the deeply uncomfortable realities of human behavior. You cannot hold that scripture in your hand after an egg hunt and not feel the immediate chilling connection.
Which perfectly sets the stage for the next thematic shift in the activity.
A burial.
Right. The source moves us from the physical toll into what we might call the impossible barrier, the death and the burial. And it gives us a very specific environmental fact.
The earthquake.
Yes, the earth shook. The physical planet reacted to the death, terrifying the guards stationed there, causing them to admit, truly, this was the Son of God.
Notice how the source emphasizes the external witnesses there.
What do you mean?
It's not just the grieving disciples who recognize the magnitude of the moment. It's the physical earth, and it's the very guards who were complicit in the political execution. And that focus on undeniable physical reality continues right into the burial with eggs 9 and 10. Joseph of Arimathea provides a real rock-hewn tomb. The body is wrapped in clean linen.
Okay, so I was actually wondering about this next part.
Yeah.
The crucial detail the source wants participants to focus on is the great stone rolled over the door and the guard set by the priestly rulers.
Yes, very specific details.
Why focus so heavily on the guards and the stone? I mean, if you're summarizing the Easter story for a family, you could easily just say, Jesus died and was buried. Why does this source insist that the family unpacks the logistical details of the tomb's security?
Because the logistics establish the absolute finality of the situation.
Okay, finality.
Right. The tomb wasn't just closed, it was sealed. It was heavily guarded by the military and political powers of the day who were terrified of a stolen body.
So they locked it down.
Completely. There was zero human probability of that stone being moved. By forcing the participant to confront the stone and the guards, the source deliberately builds an impossible barrier.
You really have to feel it.
You have to feel the crushing, claustrophobic weight of that sealed tomb. You have to understand mathematically and physically how impossible the situation was. Because if you don't feel the finality of Friday, you cannot possibly comprehend the magnitude of Sunday.
If you don't feel the finality of Friday, you can't comprehend the magnitude of Sunday. That is incredibly powerful.
It's the whole point of the chronological buildup.
And it leads us directly to the climax of the activity. The tension has been building for 11 eggs now. You've walked through the betrayal, the mockery, the game played for clothes, the earthquake, the sealed rock.
You're weighed down by it all.
Right. Then the family reaches the final eggs. Egg 11 brings us back to the themes of spring and new life. Mary Magdalene brings spices to the tomb.
She arrives expecting the finality we just analyzed. She expects the guards and the stone.
But the stone is moved.
An angel from heaven has rolled it away. And I really want to highlight the angel's wording in the source here.
Yeah, what does it say?
He says, "Fear not ye, for I know that ye seek Jesus, which was crucified."
Which is crucified.
Exactly. The angel doesn't gloss over the trauma. He acknowledges the brutal reality of the crucifixion before delivering the ultimate news.
Which brings us to egg 12, the final egg in the hunt.
The grand finale.
Yeah. You have a child or a parent who have been opening these plastic shells, pulling out heavy scriptures, maybe small rocks or coins. They pick up the 12th egg, they crack it open, expecting the final piece of the puzzle, and there is nothing inside.
The egg is empty.
It is entirely empty. The angel's message is, "He is not here, for he is risen." And the plastic shell perfectly, physically mirrors the empty rock-hewn tomb.
It's brilliant.
You expect to find a physical object, but the complete absence of anything is the message. The emptiness is the proof.
It is a masterstroke of tactile learning. The sudden lack of physical weight in that final egg communicates the factual concept of resurrection far more effectively than reading 1,000 words on the subject.
It really hits you.
It does. The source material states that because of this specific historical event, the fact that the tomb was literally empty, we all will be resurrected too. The empty plastic egg transforms from a cheap holiday toy into a profound promise of universal immortality.
But, you know, the deep dive doesn't end with the egg hunt. And I think this is where the source takes a massive step forward.
Yeah, it broadens the scope.
It transitions from this annual, localized family event to how these factual events fundamentally alter everyday modern life. The source brings in insights from modern religious leaders to explain the ongoing practical application of the empty tomb.
Yes. The source introduces a concept from Elder John M. Madsen, an Emeritus General Authority 70, that completely reframes how we experience the calendar.
Reframes the calendar.
Yeah. He explains that our observance of the Sabbath day is fundamentally tied to this event. He states that every Sunday, not just Easter Sunday, is the Lord's Day.
Oh, wow.
It is a weekly, recurring commemoration of the factual reality that Christ came forth from the grave on a Sunday.
Okay, this is a huge paradigm shift. If you are listening to this, think about your own calendar. We tend to isolate these historical events to one specific day in the spring.
Right, Easter Sunday.
We buy the outfits, we hide the eggs, we have the big dinner, and then Monday rolls around and we pack it all away for 12 months. But Elder Manson is arguing that every single Sunday is meant to be a mini Easter.
A mini Easter. I like that.
52 times a year, you're supposed to cognitively return to the empty tomb.
And consider the psychological impact of that reframing. If you treat every Sunday as a literal commemoration of resurrection, how does that change your mundane Tuesday morning commute?
Yeah, or bigger things.
Exactly. How does it change the way you face a difficult medical diagnosis, or a financial crisis, or the loss of a loved one?
It changes everything.
It does. If Sunday is a weekly, undeniable reminder that impossible barriers like sealed tombs and death itself can be overcome, it injects a profound resilience into the human experience. The empty tomb isn't just an ancient trivia fact. It is a weekly operational framework for living.
And to solidify that framework, Elder Madsen adds a vital historical detail about the days immediately following the resurrection. He notes that just 8 days after the crucified Lord came forth, many of his faithful disciples and all of his living apostles had seen the risen Lord.
Yes, but they didn't just see a fleeting vision from a distance.
No, the language in the source is incredibly specific. They heard him speak. And most importantly, they handled and felt his resurrected body.
They handled it.
It was a tangible, physical reality.
Precisely. It was not a collective hallucination or a comforting metaphor invented by grieving followers. It was flesh and bone.
Right.
And because they physically handled his resurrected body, Elder Madsen points out, they became undeniable witnesses to the factual reality of the event.
Wow, and that ties perfectly back to the activity.
It loops right back to the pedagogy of the egg hunt. Just as the family physically handles the tokens in the plastic eggs to anchor their understanding, the ancient apostles physically handled the resurrected body to anchor their witness.
It all comes back to the tactile reality of the event. And the source material concludes by drawing a direct, unbroken line from those ancient witnesses who felt his hands to modern leaders today.
It brings it right into the present.
It invites the reader to watch and listen to a special witness of Christ, President Gordon B. Hinckley, as he bears his modern testimony of the literal resurrection.
It is a deliberate passing of the torch. It demonstrates that the factual reality of the empty tomb isn't trapped in the first century. It is an active, witnessed reality in the 21st century.
So let's take a step back and synthesize exactly what this source has accomplished today.
Good idea.
We started this deep dive looking at a common modern dilemma: the friction between the brightly colored, candy-filled secular traditions of spring and the heavy, sacred reality of the foundational event of Christianity.
And instead of rejecting the secular symbols, the source provided a roadmap to subvert them.
Yeah, to repurpose them.
Exactly. It took the plastic egg, which is, the ultimate symbol of holiday distraction, and turned it into a chronological sequence of cognitive friction. It forced participants to hold the uncomfortable realities of political betrayal, physical torment, and sealed tombs in their own hands.
It used the act of playing a game to highlight the tragedy of soldiers casting lots. It used the physical weight of small objects to build the tension of Friday, all to ensure that when the 12th egg is cracked open, the absolute emptiness of the shell delivers the profound relief and joy of Sunday.
It bridges the gap between ancient history and modern tactile learning. And ultimately, it shifts the participants' perspective from just an annual holiday to a weekly, 52 weeks a year framework of resilience based on the factual resurrection.
It really is a brilliant synthesis. And so as we wrap up, we want to turn the questions directly to you, the listener, just as the source material does.
Yeah, we'd love for you to think about this.
When you look at your own traditions, how do you navigate that tension? What are some of the ways your family celebrates Easter? And ultimately, when you strip away the candy, the pastel colors, and the spring aesthetics, what does the factual reality of that empty tomb mean to you on a random Tuesday in October?
And as you ponder those questions, I want to leave you with one final thought to explore on your own.
Let's hear it.
We have just spent this time analyzing how a completely mundane, cheap, mass-produced item, a plastic egg, can be cleverly repurposed to carry the greatest historical and theological narrative of human history. The medium itself became the message.
Right.
It makes you wonder, if you look around your house right now, what other ordinary, everyday objects are sitting on your shelves or in your drawers that could be entirely reimagined?
Oh, that's a great thought.
What other common items could be unpacked to reveal profound spiritual or historical lessons to the people you love?
That is a fantastic question to leave on. The profound is often hiding right there in the completely ordinary, just waiting for someone curious enough to crack it open. Because sometimes the most powerful lessons don't come from a textbook. They come from realizing that an empty plastic shell holds the exact same promise as an empty rock-hewn tomb. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We will catch you next time.
Thank you for joining us for this day in His story. May the lessons of yesterday inspire you to see God's hand today and to play your part in His story now. For more faith-based learning, visit ahsworldwide.org, the homeschool for faith and family.